So as some of you may know, I was planning on giving myself a 3-day weekend this weekend. However, as I was scrolling through Twitter, I saw something that I instantly knew I wanted to come talk about. Because this weekend, 5-star cornerback and one of the best prospects in all of high school football out the state of Florida, Charles Lester, is visiting Boulder, Colorado. And while that already is fantastic for Colorado fans everywhere, that's not all we need to break down. But before we can, as always, y'all know the drill, I have got to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Do you think Coach Prime can go 3 years in a row with landing a 5-star cornerback? Let me know what you're thinking. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Hit that bell notification. I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoyed this content, be sure to like and comment down below, as those interactions seem small. They are massive to content creators such as myself, and both getting picked up and maintained by the YouTube algorithm, and we're on a push to 20,000 subscribers. I'd love to have you a part of this unbelievable community. But having said all that, let's jump right into this. And first and foremost, who is Charles Lester? Well, Charles Lester is one of the most gifted prospects in the entirety of the class of 2024. He plays his high school football in the state of Florida, and pretty much, well, any college that could get his attention has tried to do so. He stands 6'1", 170 pounds, and if we look at the 24/7 Sports composite, they tell the story of what a gifted prospect he is. Because per the composite, this is a top 20 player in all of high school football regardless of position. Specifically, coming in as the number 16 prospect in the nation, the number 2 cornerback, and the number 4 player in the state of Florida. And one of the interesting things about Charles Lester and his recruiting process is in May, he recently dropped a top 3. A top 3 that consisted of Florida State, Georgia, and the Alabama Crimson Tide, yet this weekend he's on a visit to Boulder, Colorado. First and foremost, that's not unheard of. We've seen times before, like in the situation with Colorado, where a school will have a regime change, and the prospect has a long-standing relationship with schools such as Florida State, with schools such as Alabama and Georgia, but he doesn't have a long-standing relationship with the new regime at Colorado. Though he's released his top 3, that does not mean he won't give the Colorado Buffaloes a look, as we can clearly tell with Charles Lester being in Boulder. But this also paves way to something we've alluded to, and we've actually flat out said here on this channel. Something that Coach Prime has that is very, very powerful, and Charles Lester actually proves it. And that's the intrigue around Boulder, Colorado right now. You've heard me talk about Coach Prime moving the needle. You've heard me talk about this staff moving the needle. And another way we can package that is the level of intrigue around Boulder. Don't believe me? Well, we can just go back a few months, where the former number 1 cornerback in the nation, Kermani McLean, was a Miami commit, was set to sign with Miami, and then didn't show up to the ceremony. Lo and behold, he ended up in the Colorado Buffaloes recruiting class, and Coach Prime had not been at Colorado for 4 months at that point. He just got there, and he was able to overcome long-standing relationships. We have seen Coach Prime be able to utilize the intrigue around himself and the program he's at to great success on the recruiting trail. So if people want to pretend like it's not there, it's something contrary to reality. We have seen it time and time again. We can talk about Travis Hunter, we can talk about Kermani McLean, and we can continue that conversation for Charles Lester. Because as I just said, though it's not unheard of for a prospect to release a top 3, a top 2, a top 4, whatever it may be, and then take visits to schools not in that list, it does go to prove a point that Coach Prime in Colorado have a level of intrigue around the program that would pull a Charles Lester there, that would make Charles Lester say, hey, I have got a long-standing relationship with some of the best schools in all of college football. I have got a long-standing relationship with none other than Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson Tide, Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs, and I don't know how many of you have watched the NFL draft the past 3 years. Talk to me about how many Georgia and Alabama players are in the first 2 rounds. I mean, it seems like it's a third of the draft every single year. The University of Georgia, the University of Alabama, sending them in waves to the NFL, and then you look at the active roster numbers that each of those schools have. It's wild. You have 2 schools like that. You have Florida State, where the level of intrigue around Florida State is very high right now. All the fans in Florida are waiting for one of those schools to really recapture the magic so many of the Florida fans became accustomed to. And Mike Norvell did great work last year. There's a lot of excitement to see what they can do this year. And still, for a kid that's from the state of Florida, He is interested in seeing what Coach Prime and Colorado are cooking. That right there is a powerful thing. Being able to get people through the door is step one. Step two is showing them what you have. And if we look at what Colorado has, it's a very impressive coaching staff. Now, results still need to be shown on the field, one thing we always talk about, and this is the last point I want to talk about on this subject before we move on to the other thing we need to discuss. Coach Prime and them still are in the midst of a rebuild. We need to understand something. If people are holding Coach Prime to the standard of Pac-12 championship or bust in year one, I don't know that that's realistic. Do you want to know what a realistic expectation, what a phenomenal expectation would be for the Colorado Buffaloes in year one? Build a foundation. Build a foundation that we all can look at and unquestionably say, all right, there's something cooking there. How many wins that takes to get there, I don't know that I even have an exact number right now. But play good football. Be a team that whenever Saturday comes, whoever you're playing says, okay, well, this isn't a gimme week. We might win, but we're going to have to go take the win. It's not going to be given to us. Build a foundation. Because right now, Colorado and Coach Prime are recruiting off of hype. They have Charles Lester in the building off of hype and intrigue alone. But this was a Colorado team that was 1-11 last year. Now, that's not the sins of Coach Prime. He wasn't there when they went 1-11. That's certainly nothing to do with him. But it's just painting the picture that this is a legitimate rebuild that Coach Prime is taking over. This isn't a team that had several pieces that he could come in and then modify. This was a total rebuild. And so what we need to see year one, build a foundation that shows everybody upon this foundation a house can be built. That's going to be extremely powerful. How many wins that looks like, I don't know. But it is what I'm excited to see for the Colorado Buffaloes. And if they can do that, the level of intrigue is only going to skyrocket. Because right now, off of hype alone, he's pulling a 5-star cornerback. Something else to note, a 5-star cornerback from the state of Florida. And if you're a fan of the Florida schools, you cannot be comfortable that Coach Prime is after yet another one of your 5-star defensive backs. Now, the other area we need to talk about before we get up out of here this Saturday morning is there are 2 names visiting Colorado this weekend outside of Charles Lester that I find compelling. Names we need to discuss. First and foremost, quarterback Danny O'Neal. Now, Danny O'Neal may be a 3-star prospect, but it's important to note that here recently he competed at the Elite 11 and turned heads and earned his invitation to the Elite 11 finals. And if he goes there and balls out, expect to see him rise up the recruiting boards. We see this every single year. A quarterback many people may not know about show out during the Elite 11. The scouts see him, the guys that work with these quarterbacks see him, and the guys that rank see him, and they all start realizing, all right, this dude is a legitimate baller. Danny O'Neal being in Boulder this weekend is powerful. One of the things we talk about is quarterbacks can be phenomenal recruiters for your class. We see this time and time again. One of the best examples of this is when Caleb Williams committed to Oklahoma out of high school, and he instantly started working trying to make that class as good as it could get. And Danny O'Neal being there is just another recruiting pitch that the Colorado Buffaloes coaching staff can utilize, and that's something I'm really interested in seeing. Whenever you have guys that are coming to weekends that you're hosting that are already committed, it shows that there's a level of buy-in, and kids want to be a part of something that they believe in. If you have prospects already committed still showing up to these visits just to interact with others, that shows there's a level of buy-in. But that gets me to the next name we need to talk about, 4-star athlete Aaron Butler out the state of California. And this is a name that I am going to be circling because everything we just said about Danny O'Neal can carry down to Aaron Butler aside from the fact of him being a quarterback. That's the only difference here. My point being this, Aaron Butler is on an unofficial visit to the Colorado Buffaloes. And for those of you not aware, the main difference in college football between an official visit and an unofficial visit, aside from communication and what you can do, is on an unofficial visit, you're paying out of pocket to be there. Whereas on an official visit, that's all taken care of for you. You can only have so many official visits, but that's on the dime of the school. On an unofficial visit, that's on the dime of the player. I have always been of the mindset that while official visits are no doubt important, follow the unofficial visits. Because personally, me, if I want to be somewhere, if I really want to be somewhere, I'm going to be inclined to pay money out of my own pocket to get there as opposed to waiting for the free ride to come up. If I really want to go see something and I know, hey, I might have the opportunity in 4 months to go see there, or I know I can just shell out the money and go next week, I might be inclined to shell out the money and go next week. And that's exactly what Aaron Butler is doing. Now, why is this powerful? Because this is a top prospect in the nation. This is a guy that the Georgia Bulldogs were after. This is a guy that the USC Trojans were after. We can go down the list of offers he holds. Offers to schools that are legitimate college football playoff contenders, and he committed to the Colorado Buffaloes because he believes in the future. Now, why that's powerful is you get him on campus the same weekend, you get a Charles Lester on campus. Charles Lester, who may not have had Colorado in the top 3, but the level of intrigue around Coach Prime, the level of intrigue around the Buffaloes made Charles Lester come see it for himself. And now you have an individual who's already in this class, someone who already believes in what Coach Prime is building there, who paid to be there on his own dime so that he could help recruit. One thing we need to realize, y'all, is that these prospects in these classes, they can be powerful recruiters. And as great as a recruiter is Coach Mathis is, as great as a recruiter as Coach Prime is, no arguing those, it's an even better situation when you have a prospect in your class that after Coach Prime and Coach Mathis talk to Charles Lester, well, now he gets to go kick it with someone his own age. Aaron Butler, someone who's already bought into the vision, someone who already believes in the vision. Now you get to go talk to him, and he gets to pick up the pitch where the other two left off. That is what I find very powerful. That is what we have to watch. But the Colorado Buffaloes, no stranger to the level of intrigue around them, especially with Coach Prime being there, something we have got to keep up with. Hop down to the comments. Let me know what you're thinking. That's it. See ya.